Most people look at a small 4x4 and see a compromise. Something for weekend trails. Something you drive when you can't afford the real thing. Japan looked at that assumption and built 10 machines to prove it completely wrong. These aren't toys. They aren't weekend projects. They are precision-engineered, overbuilt, over-spec'd, over-engineered vehicles that Toyota, Ford, and Land Rover never expected to be embarrassed by. And yet, somehow, they were. From a tiny van built on a rally chassis to a truck the size of a golf cart with a locking differential, Japan refused to let small mean weak. They refused to let compact mean basic. And they refused to let affordable mean underbuilt. Before we get into number 10, I want to tell you about the number 1 vehicle on this list. It looks like a van. It parks like a van. It fits in a parking space like a van. But underneath it, Mitsubishi quietly bolted on the same chassis, architecture used in one of the most successful off-road rally vehicles ever built. We'll get to it at the end, and when we do, you'll understand exactly why it belongs at the top. 10 vehicles, 1 country, 0 compromises. Let's get into it. Number 10. Daihatsu Taft F20. It's 1974. Japan is rebuilding. The economy is surging. And Daihatsu, a company most of the world had never heard of, decides to build a full-spec 4x4 that could go anywhere, carry anything, and cost almost nothing. They called it the Taft. And the name wasn't accidental. Taft stands for Tough and Almighty 4-Wheel Touring Vehicle. Daihatsu wasn't describing what the Taft could do. They were making a promise. And unlike most automotive promises, this one held up for 50 years. The original F10 launched with a 1.0-liter petrol engine, a 4-speed manual transmission, and a 2-range transfer case. That last part is important. A 2-range transfer case on a vehicle this small, at this price point in 1974, was not standard practice. That was the engineering decision of a company that refused to build something halfway. By 1977, Daihatsu upgraded the Taft to the F20 series, dropping in a 1.6-liter Toyota 12R petrol engine producing 79 horsepower. Around the same time, they introduced the F50 diesel variant with a 2.5-liter engine, a diesel option on a mini 4x4 that most Western markets wouldn't see for another decade. The Taft came as a soft top, a hard top, and eventually a tray-back utility version. All of them shared the same bones: ladder frame construction, 4-wheel leaf spring suspension, solid axles front and rear, and that transfer case that gave it genuine low-range crawling capability. Toyota noticed. Between 1981 and 1984, Toyota sold a rebadged version of the Taft under their own name, the Toyota Blizzard. We'll come back to that in a few minutes. The Taft was discontinued in 1984, replaced by the Daihatsu Rugger. But its legacy didn't end there. In Indonesia, the Taft name was used for decades afterward, because locally they understood something the rest of the world missed. The Taft wasn't just a small off-roader. It was the blueprint for everything Japan would build next. If Daihatsu built the Taft today and charged what it's worth, it would embarrass half the compact SUV market. Instead, they built it in 1974, charged almost nothing, and let the world figure it out for itself. Had you heard of the Daihatsu Taft before this video? Drop a yes or no below. I want to know how underrated this thing actually is. Number 9. Subaru BRAT. In 1977, the President of the United States requested a small, practical, all-terrain vehicle that could be used on his ranch in California. Subaru built one. Ronald Reagan bought it, and the BRAT became one of the most unlikely automotive icons of the 20th century. BRAT stands for Bi-Drive Recreational All-Terrain Transporter, and unlike most vehicles with aggressive acronym names, the BRAT actually earned its description. Launched in 1978 and sold continuously until 1994, the Subaru BRAT was a 4-wheel drive, coupe utility, what Australians call a ute, based on the Subaru Leon platform. It weighed only 2,200 pounds. It had a pickup bed. It had jump seats mounted in the back of that bed facing rearward. And it had a full-time four-wheel drive system that put most dedicated off-roaders to shame. Early Brats came with a 1.6-litre horizontally opposed four-cylinder EA71 engine producing 67 horsepower. By 1981, Subaru upgraded to the 1.8-litre EA81, making 73 horsepower. The 1983 and 1984 models could be optioned with a turbocharged engine producing 94 horsepower. An extraordinary figure for a vehicle this small and this light. The early single-range transfer case was replaced with a dual-range unit from 1981 onward on GL models, giving the BRAT genuine low-range crawling capability on top of its already impressive all-terrain performance. What made the BRAT remarkable wasn't just what it could do, it was what it refused to be. It refused to be just a pickup. It refused to be just an SUV. It refused to be just a trail toy. It was a working vehicle, a leisure vehicle, and a genuine off-roader in one package that weighed less than most motorcycles weigh today. The jump seats in the bed are now famous, installed partly to exploit a US import tax loophole that classified vehicles with rear passenger seats as cars rather than trucks. Subaru was too practical to waste an opportunity. They put seats back there, filed the paperwork, and saved a fortune on import duties. The BRAT was sold in 100 countries. It never got the recognition it deserved, and if you can find a clean one today, you should buy it before someone else figures out what it's worth. The BRAT had a turbo option in 1983 that almost nobody knows about. If Subaru brought the BRAT back today with a modern Boxer turbo, would you buy one? Tell me below. Coming up, a vehicle the American press called dangerous. Off-road enthusiasts called it the best mini 4x4 they'd ever driven, and Japan quietly kept building it for over a decade after they told the world to stop. Number 8. Suzuki SJ410/Samurai. In 1988, Consumer Reports published an article calling the Suzuki Samurai likely to roll over during emergency maneuvers. Sales collapsed almost overnight. Suzuki's reputation in North America was damaged for years. There was just one problem with that report. Off-road enthusiasts who actually drove the Samurai knew it was wrong. The Samurai, known in its home market and other international markets as the SJ41 and SJ413, was introduced in 1981. It was built on a simple, proven philosophy. Make it light, make it capable, make it reliable. Everything else was negotiable. The SJ410 launched with a 1.0-litre four-cylinder engine. In 1984, Suzuki introduced the SJ413 with a 1.3-litre four-cylinder producing 63 horsepower. That's not a big number. But in a vehicle weighing just over 1,800 pounds with a short wheelbase, solid axles, leaf springs, and a 2-speed part-time transfer case, 63 horsepower goes a very long way. The Samurai was available as a convertible or hardtop. Its short wheelbase, the same characteristic that Consumer Reports flagged, was actually its greatest off-road asset. Short wheelbase means more articulation angle, better approach and departure, and the ability to navigate terrain that longer wheelbase vehicles simply cannot access. Off-road competition proved the point. The Samurai became a staple of rock crawling, trail driving, and competitive 4x4 events throughout the 1980s and 1990s. It was simple enough to modify, robust enough to survive those modifications, and cheap enough that when something did break, you fixed it and kept going. The 1988 Consumer Reports article was later widely criticized and disputed. Suzuki sued. The case was eventually settled. But the damage was done, at least in North America. Everywhere else in the world, the Samurai kept selling. Countries that drove it on actual roads, in actual terrain, under actual conditions, didn't need a lab test to tell them what they already knew. The Samurai worked. By 1995, most major markets had transitioned to the newer Jimny. The Samurai's production run ended, but its reputation in the off-road community never faded. It is still, today, one of the most modified and competed small 4x4 platforms ever built. The Consumer Reports rollover test destroyed the Samurai's reputation in America overnight. Do you think the test was fair? Or was this the press getting it completely wrong? Comment below. Number 7. Mitsubishi Pajero Mini. In 1994, Mitsubishi asked a question that no other manufacturer had asked before. What if we took everything we learned from winning the Dakar Rally, the suspension geometry, the engineering philosophy, the overbuilt approach to components, and compressed it into a K-class vehicle with a 659 cubic centimeter engine? The result was the Mitsubishi Pajero Mini, and it was not a compromise. Based on the platform of the Mitsubishi Minica, but styled and engineered to reflect the full-size Pajero that had been dominating rally raid competition since the early 1980s, the Pajero Mini arrived in December 1994 with two engine options: a naturally aspirated 659 cubic centimeter four-cylinder, producing 52 horsepower, and a turbocharged version of the same engine producing 64 horsepower. Both versions were available in two-wheel or four-wheel drive. The four-wheel drive model outsold the two-wheel drive model consistently, because the people buying it understood what it was for. That turbo four-wheel drive version was a machine built to genuinely perform off-road, not to appear capable, not to look the part, to actually do it. Ground clearance, approach angles, suspension travel, and the low-range transfer case all came from the same engineering, DNA, as the full-size Pajero, just compressed into a package the Japanese government classified as a K vehicle. Mitsubishi leaned into the identity. They released limited editions named Iron Cross, Desert Cruiser, White Skipper, and Duke, names borrowed directly from the full-size Pajero's marketing language. They weren't pretending the Pajero Mini was something it wasn't. They were making the point that the engineering wasn't pretending either. The Pajero Mini was sold from December 1994 until June 2012. 18 years of continuous production for a K-class vehicle based on rally-proven engineering. Only Japan could produce that combination and sell it at a price that made the rest of the world question what they were doing with their money. The Pajero Mini's 4WD model outsold the 2WD version almost immediately. Would you have bought the Turbo 4WD or the naturally aspirated version, and why? Let me know below. Number 6. Toyota Blizzard. There is a version of this list where the Toyota Blizzard sits at number 1. It is that significant, that overbuilt, that misunderstood. Toyota launched the Blizzard in March 1980, exclusively for the Japanese domestic market. It was based on the Daihatsu Taft that we covered at number 10, but Toyota fitted it with their own engine, a naturally aspirated 2.2-liter L-Series, inline four-cylinder diesel, displacing 2,188 cubic centimeters and producing 67 horsepower. Read that again. A 2.2-liter commercial diesel engine, in a vehicle smaller than most modern hatchbacks. This was not a petrol engine with pretensions. This was a commercial-grade diesel, the kind of engine Toyota fitted in light trucks and utility vehicles that were expected to run for 500,000 kilometers with basic maintenance. In a vehicle this small, with that powertrain, the result was an off-roader that was essentially indestructible. The Blizzard used ladder frame construction, four-wheel leaf spring suspension on all four corners, solid axles front and rear, and a 2-speed transfer case. The first-generation models from 1980 to 1983 came with a 4-speed manual transmission. From 1983 onward, Toyota upgraded to a 5-speed. The Blizzard was sold exclusively through Toyota Vista stores, making it one of the rarest Toyota vehicles ever produced. Fewer than a dozen examples are known to exist in North America today. When the first generation Blizzard was discontinued in 1984, Toyota replaced it with the second generation LD20, now based on the Daihatsu Rugger, and fitted it with a 2.4-liter diesel engine. More power, more refinement, same overbuilt philosophy. Production of the Blizzard continued all the way to April 1990. 10 years, 2 generations, one obsessive commitment to building a tiny truck around a diesel engine that had no business being in a vehicle that small. That is the Toyota Blizzard. Japan built it, kept it entirely to themselves, and let it disappear without the world ever knowing what it had missed. Toyota put a commercial-grade diesel in a vehicle smaller than a modern city car, then kept it entirely to Japan. Is the Toyota Blizzard the most underrated Toyota ever built? Tell me what you think below. 5 vehicles down, 5 to go. And the one we're building toward at number 1. It shares its chassis architecture with the same vehicle that won the Dakar Rally multiple times. Keep watching. Number 5. Suzuki Vitara / Sidekick. By 1988, Suzuki had already established itself as the definitive manufacturer of small, serious 4x4 vehicles. The Jimny was a global icon. The SJ410 and Samurai were selling in over 100 countries. And then Suzuki looked at everything they had learned and built something more refined, more capable, and more internationally successful than anything they'd made before. The Suzuki Escudo, known as the Vitara in Europe, the Sidekick in North America, and the Escudo in Japan, launched in July 1988. It was designed to slot above the Samurai in Suzuki's lineup and offer a more road-friendly package without sacrificing genuine off-road capability. The formula was immediately clear. Independent front suspension, a significant upgrade over the solid front axle of the Samurai, paired with a coil-sprung rear, gave the Vitara a ride quality and handling composure that its predecessor couldn't match. The initial engine was a fuel-injected 1.6-liter 4-cylinder Suzuki G16A, producing 80 horsepower, later upgraded to a 16-valve version making 95 horsepower. The four-wheel drive system used a 2-speed manual shift transfer case with automatic locking hubs, what Suzuki called shift-on-the-fly four-wheel drive. Engage it at low speed, send power to all 4 wheels, and the Vitara went places its size had no right going. It was sold as a 2-door convertible, a 2-door hardtop, and eventually a 4-door model with a lengthened wheelbase, introduced in 1991. In North America, General Motors partnered with Suzuki to produce the Vitara at the Kami plant in Ontario, Canada, and also sold it as the Geo Tracker and later the Chevrolet Tracker. In its first year of US sales, 47,000 units moved. That number tells you everything. The public understood immediately what Suzuki had built. The first generation Vitara ran from 1988 to 1998. In a decade, it was sold in more than 100 countries, spawned multiple badge-engineered variants, and established a template that the entire compact SUV segment would spend the next 30 years trying to replicate. It was never the most powerful, it was never the most extreme, but it was the most complete. And in a category full of compromises, completeness is the rarest quality of all. The Vitara sold under at least 5 different names worldwide: Vitara, Sidekick, Escudo, Geo Tracker, Chevrolet Tracker. Which name did you know it by? Drop it in the comments. Number 4. Subaru Domingo 4 WD. Nobody asked for this. Nobody put it on a focus group whiteboard. Nobody ran the market research and came back with a report saying Japan needs a 7-seat, rear-engine, 4-wheel drive microvan. Subaru built it anyway. The Subaru Domingo, known as the Libero in European markets and the Sumo in some others, launched in 1983. It was based loosely on the Subaru Sambar platform, but with the dimensions stretched just enough to fall outside the K-car classification, allowing Subaru to fit a larger engine and offer genuine passenger accommodation. The powertrain was rear-mounted, an unusual choice for any van, let alone one with four-wheel drive ambitions. The initial engine was a 1.0-litre three-cylinder EF10 unit. This was later supplemented by a 1.2-litre EF12 three-cylinder. Both engines were derived from the Subaru Justy, and both were rear-mounted, driving the rear wheels by default with the four-wheel drive system selectable via a button on the gear stick. That button. It is worth pausing on that detail. A gear stick-mounted four-wheel drive engagement button on a 7-seat microvan in 1983. Subaru was not building a basic commuter vehicle and giving it a cosmetic four-wheel drive badge. They were building a genuine all-terrain passenger carrier and making the driver engagement as simple as possible. The Domingo carried 7 passengers. It had a high roof for headroom. It had a sliding door for practical loading. And underneath all of that practical, sensible van architecture was a selectable four-wheel drive system that meant it could be taken up mountain passes, across farm tracks, and into terrain that would strand most passenger vehicles twice its size. Subaru produced the Domingo until 1998. 15 years of continuous production for a vehicle that nobody asked for, but apparently everybody needed. When it was finally discontinued, the market it had served moved toward the Subaru Forester. But the Forester never had the Domingo's combination of packaging, practicality, and go-anywhere tenacity. There has never been another vehicle quite like it. That is either Subaru's greatest failure or their greatest achievement. We think it's the latter. A rear-engine, 7-seat, four-wheel drive microvan. Subaru built this in 1983, and nobody talks about it. Greatest overlooked vehicle in history. Or was there a reason it was forgotten? You decide. 3 vehicles left. At number 3, a K truck with a layout found in supercars. At number 2, the vehicle that turned a generation of off-road drivers into lifelong believers. And at number 1, the most overbuilt thing Japan ever put on 4 wheels. Stay with us. Number 3, Honda Acty 4WD. The Honda Acty 4WD shares its engine layout with the Lamborghini Countach, the Ferrari Testarossa, and the Bugatti EB110. All of those vehicles have their engines mounted amidships, behind the driver, ahead of the rear axle, for optimal weight distribution and handling balance. Honda put the same layout in a K truck used to harvest rice. The Honda Acty launched on July 27, 1977. Replacing earlier K trucks Honda had offered since the T360 in 1963. From the very beginning, the Acty used a mid-engine layout. Engine positioned between the axles, behind the cab, ahead of the rear wheels. This was not an accident. Honda's engineers understood that mid-engine positioning gave the Acty load-independent handling balance that cab-over rivals with front or rear-engine layouts could not match. The four-wheel drive system was added in 1983, along with disc brakes, again an engineering upgrade that most vehicles in this class and price point would not see for years. By the second generation in 1988, Honda fitted a 547 cubic centimeter 3-cylinder SOHC engine, producing 34 horsepower, paired with their new real-time 4WD system, an active four-wheel drive setup that transferred power between front and rear wheels through an advanced clutch system rather than a simple part-time lock. The 1991 Acty Attack variant took this further. Designed specifically for farmers and off-road users, the Attack came with a rear differential lock, an ultra-low forward, and reverse gears. This was not a feature borrowed from a larger vehicle. Honda engineered it specifically for this platform because the people using these trucks needed it. The third generation arrived in 1999 with a 660 cubic centimeter inline 3-cylinder E07Z engine, producing up to 52 horsepower, power steering, and an improved real-time 4WD system. The Acty truck remained in production until 2021. 44 years of continuous development, always mid-engine, always four-wheel capable, always built to a standard that its price tag should have made impossible. When the Subaru Sambar and Daihatsu Hijet transitioned to conventional front-engine layouts, the Acty became the last remaining K-truck on the market with a mid-engine configuration. Honda built it that way for 44 years because they understood that the engineering was right. You don't change what's right. The Honda Acty shares its engine layout with the Lamborghini Countach. That fact should be on every Acty's windshield. Did you know the Acty was mid-engine before this video? Yes or no below. Number 2. Suzuki Jimny. There are vehicles that become icons because they're beautiful. Vehicles that become icons because they're fast. Vehicles that become icons because they're expensive and rare. The Suzuki Jimny became an icon because it was right. It was right in 1970 when the LJ10 launched as the first four-wheel drive K-car ever to enter series production. It was right in 1981 when the second generation arrived with a proper four-stroke engine. It was right in 1998 when the third generation JB23 launched with a 660 cubic centimeter turbocharged engine, coil spring suspension on all four corners, and a dual range transfer case that gave it serious low-range capability. And it was right in 2018 when the fourth generation JB74 arrived. Still ladder frame, still solid axles, still the most capable small 4x4 available at any price. Suzuki acquired the rights to build the Jimny's predecessor, the Hopestar ON360, in 1968. By 1970, they had improved it, renamed it, and launched it as the LJ10, a 359 cubic centimeters two-cylinder, two-stroke K car that weighed 590 kilograms and had a top speed of 75 kilometers per hour. It was small, it was slow, and it could go absolutely everywhere. Over 55 years of production across 4 generations, the Jimny has been refined, upgraded, and improved. But it has never abandoned its fundamental architecture: ladder frame, solid axles, transfer case, short wheelbase. The Jimny's refusal to follow the industry toward independent suspension, monocoque construction, and on-demand all-wheel drive is not nostalgia. It is a deliberate engineering stance. Those choices, the same choices the industry has spent decades moving away from, are exactly what make the Jimny capable of doing things that vehicles costing 10 times as much cannot do. Breakover angle, axle articulation, recovery simplicity. These are not metrics that appear in road tests. They are metrics that matter when the road ends. Land Rover noticed, Toyota noticed, Jeep noticed. All of them built small 4x4 variants at various points in response to the Jimny's market presence. None of them made the Jimny irrelevant. The Jimny is still in production today. It still uses a ladder frame. It still has solid axles. And every year, a new generation of drivers discovers that the most capable thing you can buy for the price looks nothing like what they expected. The Jimny has been in production for 55 years. Land Rover, Toyota, and Jeep all tried to compete with it. None of them put it out of business. Is the Jimny the greatest small 4x4 ever built? Or does number 1 on this list take that title? Vote below. 1 vehicle left. You've seen a K-truck with supercar engineering. You've seen a machine that's been right for 55 years. But nothing on this list prepared you for what Japan did when they took the chassis of a Dakar Rally winner and bolted a passenger van on top of it. Number 1. Mitsubishi Delica Star Wagon. In October 1982, Mitsubishi made their Delica van available with 4-wheel drive. Nobody expected it. Nobody asked for it. Mitsubishi did it anyway. The Delica was not a trail toy. It was a full-size passenger van, high roof, long wheelbase, built to carry 8 people in genuine comfort across difficult terrain. Making it 4WD was not a marketing exercise. Mitsubishi gave it 4WD for the same reason they gave the Pajero 4WD, because they built things properly, and that philosophy didn't stop at the vehicle class. What makes it the most overbuilt machine on this list is what sat underneath it. Those early four-wheel drive Delicas were built on a modified Mitsubishi Pajero chassis. The same architecture Mitsubishi was campaigning in the Paris Dakar Rally. The same bones that accumulated 4 Dakar victories across the Pajero's competition career. They didn't build a separate van platform. They took what already worked in one of the most demanding off-road competitions on Earth and bolted a passenger van on top of it. Mitsubishi put a passenger van on a rally-bred chassis and sold it to civilians. The third-generation Star Wagon, the iconic soft-cube design from 1986 through 1994, came with the 2.5-litre 4D56 turbo diesel, producing 86 horsepower and 148 pound-feet of torque, or the 2.4-litre 4G64 petrol, making 107 horsepower. Part-time 4WD with high and low range. Automatic locking front hubs, ground clearance that stopped conventional four-wheel drive vehicles from following it. The L400 generation in 1994 went further. The Super Select transfer case gave it permanent four-wheel drive with a center differential lock, full-time on any surface, low range on demand. A 7-seat van that could go off-road without preparation or modification on any terrain at any time. Mitsubishi produced it through 1999, 20 years of a vehicle that should not have existed by any conventional logic. A van that families used for school runs, mountain passes, and river crossings, often on the same weekend. Today, it has a cult following across Australia, Canada, New Zealand, and the United States. Enthusiasts import them, lift them, and run them on trails that purpose-built off-roaders struggle to complete. The Delica earned that following. It didn't inherit it. It looks like a van. It parks like a van. But underneath it is the same philosophy that produced every vehicle on this list. Small doesn't mean weak. Affordable doesn't mean basic. And if you're going to build something, build it right. The Mitsubishi Delica Star Wagon is the most overbuilt Japanese mini 4x4 ever made. Nothing else comes close. Mitsubishi took the chassis from a Dakar Rally winner and put a passenger van on top of it, then sold it to families. Most overbuilt decision in automotive history, or most brilliant. Which side are you on? Comment below. 10 vehicles, 1 country, 0 compromises. Japan didn't build small. Japan built right, and then made it small. Which one of these would you actually put on your driveway? Drop it in the comments. I read every single one. If this list showed you something you'd never seen before, hit like. It helps more people find these forgotten machines. Subscribe if you want the next list the moment it drops. And if someone in your life needs to see this, share it with them right now. More is coming. We'll see you in the next one. The